Tonight, ringing in the new year will look a lot different this year.
Staying at home and drinking.
I do a little Zoom meeting with the friends, a little cocktail hour with the family.
2021 is just around the corner. How people are planning to count down to the new year and the virtual celebrations you can take part in. Plus,
I should have said, get your backside back into Ontario, and I didn't do that.
the Premier speaking out publicly for the first time about his finance minister's vacation to St. Bart's over the holidays as the fallout continues. And
the horse is a fantastic way to build a bridge between members of the public and the police.
you've seen them on the streets of Toronto, but have you ever wondered what the city's police horses actually do? We spent a day with the mounted unit to find out. Good evening, I'm Kelda Yoon. Well, just one more day before we officially say goodbye to 2020. Most people won't be sorry to see it go and are hoping the pandemic will come to an end in the new year. Right now, though, health officials are emphasizing the importance of keeping apart. This as the province and the city of Toronto both reported record high numbers of infections today. Our Nicole Ireland is live at Nathan Phillips Square. Nicole, officials are reminding people to stay in on New Year's Eve.
That's right, Kelda. Well, you know, normally at this time tomorrow night, this place would be packed. There would be people skating, there would be people watching the bands, just generally revving up to ring in the new year. But as we all know too well, this year is not like any other year. Perhaps the only familiar thing about New Year's Eve this year is the lineup at the LCBO. But how these customers will spend the evening is much different than usual.
Staying home this year, but yeah, just a quiet New Year. It's different from last year.
I'm staying away from everybody. Social distancing.
Probably get on Zoom and do a little Zoom meeting with the friends, a little cocktail hour with the family, but that's about it.
What were you doing for New Year's last year? Do you remember? I know it seems like a long time ago.
I think we had dinner plans. What else did we do?
Hung out with friends.
Hung out with friends, yeah. Much more social than it'll be this year.
Are you ready to be there?
All public celebrations are canceled as health officials drive home the importance of staying home on a day when the number of people infected with COVID-19 broke records yet again. There were almost 3,000 new cases in Ontario today, more than 1,000 of those in Toronto. As feared, hospitals are feeling the strain, with almost 2,000 people hospitalized with COVID across the province, more than 300 of them in intensive care.
Surely, the thousands of new cases and dozens of deaths in recent days will convince even the most enthusiastic New Year's Eve partier that the price to be paid for that partying just isn't worth it for anyone.
Restaurants and bars are paying a price of their own. The Tourism Industry Association of Ontario estimates the province's hotels, bars and restaurants will lose a total of almost $2 billion that New Year's Eve would normally bring in. So it's asking customers for a safer kind of support.
We would love to ask everyone to, if they can, order in from their local restaurant or pick up Ontario wine, beer or cider or spirits to ring in the new year.
So, Kelda, you know, besides ordering takeout or getting delivery, there are lots of other ways that we can stay safe and celebrate the new year while staying apart. So whether it's having a bit of a Zoom gathering with some friends to do the countdown at midnight, there's also a ton of different options online. If you check online, lots of virtual celebrations happening, lots of bands happening. And in fact, the City of Toronto, instead of having the usual party here, the City of Toronto is actually working with the CN Tower to stream a light show. And you can check that out tomorrow night at a few minutes before midnight on the City of Toronto's YouTube channel. Kelda?
Yeah, lots of ways to celebrate safely. Thanks so much, Nicole. That was our Nicole Ireland reporting live for us tonight. Well, the fallout continues for the Ford government over the finance minister's vacation during the holidays. Rod Phillips is now heading back to Canada from his getaway in St. Bart's, while the Premier answered questions for the first time this afternoon, revealing he knew about the minister's island vacation before the story broke publicly. Greg Ross has more.
I'm very upset. I'm very frustrated with the situation.
On the same day, a new shipment of COVID-19 vaccines arrived in Ontario. The Premier instead was forced to deal with a scandal from within his own cabinet.
People are losing their businesses. We're locking things down. And it's unacceptable that anyone, any elected official, myself included, or anyone that gets up ignores the rules and goes down to an island. It's unacceptable, and we're going to have a very tough conversation when he gets back.
That tough conversation will be with Finance Minister Rod Phillips, who earlier this month traveled to St. Bart's for a holiday getaway with his wife, despite constant public warnings from his own government not to. Phillips attempted to explain his decision in a statement, saying, "Had I been aware then of the eventual December 26th province-wide shutdown, we would have canceled the trip."
If it's not essential, then stay home. People have canceled all kinds of life events. I mean, people canceled weddings and they canceled trips. Some people canceled their dream trip of a lifetime.
NDP opposition leader Andrea Horwath says the explanation is unacceptable and is demanding Phillips suffer severe consequences.
I think Mr. Phillips has to be taken out of cabinet.
Horwath says Phillips even attempted to cover up the tropical trip with a series of tweets that made it seem as if he were still in the province, like this message sent out on Christmas Eve.
And I want to thank each and every one of you for what we are doing to protect our most vulnerable while we celebrate this very, very special but challenging holiday season.
I nearly fell off my chair when I saw that. I mean, he was obviously trying to make it seem as though he was, in fact, in Ontario.
It also appears he's doing the same thing in this Zoom meeting released by the Ontario Liberals today. It's reportedly from 3 days after Phillips landed in St. Bart's, and the Liberals say waves can be heard in the background.
But it's just an example. I think faith communities.
As for Premier Ford, he says Phillips didn't tell anyone about his trip before he left, but the Premier admitted he did find out about it days after Phillips arrived in the Caribbean, meaning when Ford was telling the public this,
during the holidays, hunker down.
He was well aware of the fact that his finance minister was in St. Bart's. Today, Ford took responsibility for not taking action sooner.
My mistake, and I take full responsibility. At that time, I should have said, get your backside back into Ontario, and I didn't do that.
At this point, the Premier isn't saying what punishment Phillips will face, if any, other than a stern talking to. Greg Ross, CBC News, Toronto.
Now, the trip to St. Bart's, not the only overseas travel Phillips has done this year. Yesterday, we told you he also took a personal trip in August. His office confirming to CBC News today the minister's summer vacation was to Switzerland. Well, all air travelers arriving in Canada will soon need to provide a negative test for COVID-19 before being allowed into the country. Public Safety Minister Bill Blair made the announcement today.
We believe that will assist us in potentially identifying some individuals who may be at risk. And I hope people will understand that it's in addition to the quarantine requirement, not a replacement for that.
Blair says travelers will have to receive a negative test within the 72-hour period prior to boarding a plane headed for Canada. But the opposition was critical of the government for providing very few details of how the plan will actually work. Officials said the new rule will be in place quickly, but no specific date was given. The government also announced border officers will be beefing up their presence at Canadian airports. A COVID-19 outbreak has killed 21 residents at a long-term care home in Niagara Falls. Dozens of residents and staff at Oakwood Park Lodge have tested positive for the virus. One woman who went into the facility to spend time with her dying mother says she was horrified by what she saw. Talia Ricci has her story.
Something was definitely going on. I had that feeling, it was maybe worse than what we thought.
Jennifer Penny's mother died at Oakwood Park Lodge last week after testing positive for COVID-19. She says up until then there was poor communication and mixed messages about her mother's condition, but it was what she saw there that upset her most.
We were in the lobby near the exit, and there was a woman in the wheelchair that was asking us to get her water.
Penny says she only saw 3 staff in the facility that has over 150 beds as she spent her last moments with her mother. She says the nurse she spoke with was trying her best and had been working for 16 hours.
I'm sure it was very distressing for her. She broke down in tears herself. I hate to think that there were other factors involved. She was malnourished and whatnot, but it's something that you can't ignore in your mind. That was a possibility.
I've talked to everybody begging, quite frankly, to get help in here, get staffing help in here, get cleaning staff in here, and get this place so it's safe for the residents. And it's been very, very slow. and quite frankly, the Minister of Long-Term Care should have got the Red Cross in here.
In a statement, the Ministry of Long-Term Care says it's deeply concerned by the situation at Oakwood Park Lodge and that staffing needs are being urgently met with the help of local health authorities.
I can tell you that we're at full staff complement now. We have the staff that's required. We are hydrating the patients. The patients are being fed. We have the support staff to do that work.
Penny and her son say after what they saw, it was important for them to speak out, even while they're still grieving their own loss.
Many of the other residents had passed away, and thinking that, well, did their families know? Was anybody there to see them before they passed away? Did they pass away alone, just like my grandmother?
The home has not responded to CBC's request for comment. Talia Ricci, CBC News, Niagara Falls.
50,000 doses of the Moderna vaccine have now arrived in Ontario, and many are wondering when it will be their turn to get a shot. Well, today the province released details of who will be prioritized and how the doses will be distributed. Dali Ashry reports.
Moderna, thank you.
Today is the day the Moderna COVID-19 vaccine is rolling out, and many Ontarians are wondering when it'll be their turn to get inoculated.
We are going to start offering vaccination with Moderna to residents of long-term care and high-risk retirement homes this week. So we're doing it as soon as we can with Moderna, at the same time continuing to reach the workers and the essential caregivers.
Dr. Dirk Heyer with the COVID-19 Vaccine Distribution Task Force says other frontline workers may be able to receive their vaccine, but not yet.
The paramedics are within the healthcare field and will be within the first phase, which is extending to about March.
Today, the province released its ethical framework for distribution of the vaccine.
Minimizing harms and maximizing benefits, equity, fairness, transparency, legitimacy, and public trust.
The task force also spoke about proof of immunization. Over 2 weeks ago, Ontario's health minister said a card could be used for travel and work, as well as to get into communal spaces like movie theaters. Today, bioethicist Dr. Maxwell Smith addressed the ethical questions around an immunity passport.
We want to make sure that we're identifying those that have been vaccinated for their first dose so that we can get them back for their second dose. It helps us to understand surveillance in terms of how much of the population actually has been vaccinated.
Vaccines should be available at more sites during the second phase, which is set to begin in April. In phase 3, family doctors and pharmacies will likely offer the vaccine. The goal is to have more than half of Ontarians vaccinated by the end of July. Dahlia Ashry, CBC News, Toronto.
You see them out on the streets patrolling, but what do police forces and officers actually do? I'm Angelina King. I'll introduce you to horses like First Responder and tell you what it's like to police on horseback for a day. That's coming up.
A mix of rain and snow today, and we're doing it all over again on New Year's Day. Your full forecast after the break.
A man is dead after being struck by a vehicle in Scarborough. It happened near Shepherd and Kennedy just after 5 o'clock this evening. Police say the man became trapped under the vehicle. He was pronounced dead at the scene. Police are looking for witnesses and dashcam footage. Well, you've seen them patrolling the streets or perhaps at an event. When they aren't on duty, they live in the stables at Exhibition Place. They are the highly trained horses of the Toronto Police Mounted Unit. But what do the city's police horses actually do? Angelina King spent a day finding out.
Policing looks a lot different from up here. That's how the Toronto Police's Mounted Unit has been patrolling the city for more than 130 years, a long-running partnership between the 25 horses and 40 officers.
It really is the bond that you have with your partner. I rely on him as much as he relies on me.
Officers say that trust, combined with training and this unique view, is integral when searching for missing people, traffic enforcement, and crowd control. But their main purpose? Crime prevention by simply being there.
A lot of people really take notice, and it has a big impact.
The unit's annual budget of $5.5 million is just a sliver of the service's total budget. In comparison, last year it cost $1 million more than a 4-month project combating gun violence. So, amid conversations about defunding or cutting the police budget, some wonder whether officers on horseback still make sense.
It doesn't seem that it's central to how policing operates today.
Do you think it's time to do away with the unit?
Don't know. I mean, let's get some information. What are they doing? Let's get some real sense of that.
I guess people just assume it's sort of an outdated method, but there's a lot of things you can do on horses that you can't do, say, in a vehicle.
Sergeant Pratt says it's the safest way to control crowds.
If you have foot patrol officers, a crowd might decide to turn on them. A crowd can't move an 1,800-pound animal. They just can't do it.
The unit kept a watchful eye after the Raptors won the championship and cleared a path for ambulances at the celebration parade after a shooting in the crowd. Plus, the unit is useful in diffusing situations.
There was a fight on Queen Street, a group of individuals, and when I showed up, I would say half ran off and the other half wanted to pet the horse. The presence just seems to really change the dynamics in a positive way.
He says the animals show communities a sense of support while making policing more approachable.
The horse is a fantastic way to build a bridge between members of the public and the police, which is needed, I believe, as much now as it ever has been.
By sharing this perspective, officers hope the public feels safe and supported by them and their trusty partners. Angelina King, CBC News, Toronto.
It's been a cloudy evening with showers throughout, tapering off as the night went on. It will remain cloudy overnight with a few clear breaks. Let's go to our meteorologist, Nick Cernkovich now. And Nick, a wet one out there today and more of the same to come.
Well, Kelda, it's been sort of a tale of two seasons today, and we're going to do it all over again as we head into New Year's Day. Well, let's talk about today first. We started out with snowfall, a couple centimeters, then we switched over to some freezing rain and rainfall, and by the afternoon, we're up to temperatures of about 5 degrees. Now, 5 degrees into the evening is starting to drop, and we're looking at temperatures falling into the negative single digits tonight. A few lingering flurries through the overnight. As we head through tomorrow morning, a mix of sun and cloud, though at times we'll see more cloudy skies, and that's because we'll still see some lingering snow squalls coming off of Lake Huron and Georgian Bay. Generally, those should stay dry, but areas to the north of the GTA could see a few flurries as we head through tomorrow afternoon. Otherwise, a pretty good day. Friday starts out as mainly sunny skies, switches to a mix of sun and cloud. There's our next system. By Friday evening, it looks like it's likely going to start out as a sort of wet snowfall, switches over to patchy freezing rain, then rainfall, and then back over to some light snowfall on the backside of this. So it looks like a messy mix from Friday night into Saturday sort of early morning, and then by the time we hit Saturday afternoon, things start to clear out. Forecast snow totals on this model show 8 centimeters, say, for Toronto, but I wouldn't put too much stock in that because of the rain-snow mixing. you can't really say we're going to get 8 centimeters of snowfall because I think a lot of it's going to sort of wash away in the mix there. As we head through tonight, winds are also easing as well. Gusts about 50 kilometers per hour earlier on, petering out by tomorrow morning, gusts about 20, 30 kilometers per hour, and that's where they're going to stay for the day tomorrow. Overnight tonight, southwestern Ontario temperatures about -4 degrees, wind chills close to about -10. By the afternoon, we're hovering around the freezing mark. A little bit more in the way of cloud cover down here, although I do think we're going to see the sunshine as well. Golden Horseshoe, temperatures tonight hovering around -1 to -3 degrees, depending on where you are. Still gusty winds, though. Those will ease by the morning. Highs tomorrow of 2 degrees. But again, you see there's a few flurries, especially to the north of the GTA as we head through tomorrow afternoon. So cloud cover clearing out on Thursday, then starts out sunny on Friday, which is of course New Year's Day, increasing cloud cover, about 2 to 4 centimeters of snow, 5 to 10 millimeters of rain. But again, I wouldn't put too much stock in these numbers just yet. Saturday doesn't look too bad, but it looks like we could see some more snowfall heading into Sunday. Kelda.
All right, thanks so much, Nick.
The weather is brought to you by Trane, the most reliable heating and cooling brand. We test, so it runs. It's hard to stop a train.
With everyone being asked to stay at home, some are using the opportunity to upgrade their spaces.
It's not something that ever crossed my mind. It essentially had become wasted space. I was considering using it as a storage spot.
How some families are finding ways to make the lockdown easier. Coming up. COVID-19 has hit many parts of the economy hard this year, but one area that's booming in the GTA is home renovations. As Nicole Ireland tells us, families are finding creative ways to make lockdown living easier.
When Megan and Michael Wadrago welcomed their second child in the fall, they had both been working from home and feeling a little cramped. They didn't see any options to expand until one day Michael looked outside at the balcony.
It's not something that ever crossed my mind. It essentially had become wasted space. I was considering using it as a storage spot so we could like free up more interior space. And when he came up with this idea, I'm like, this is brilliant.
Using tension rods and a tarp, Michael enclosed the balcony to protect it from wind and snow. He's a personal trainer, so he knew what he needed to make it into a gym, as well as a place their little girl Naomi could play, and a retreat where Megan could work out or just take some precious alone time.
It's opened up our world, having an extra room for our 4-person family.
Across the city, Leslie Anderson was also struggling. COVID-19 forced the immigration and refugee lawyer to do her legal aid clinic work in her semi-detached house, where her young children were also doing their schooling online.
And trying to manage art class and drafting factums and everything all in the same space and the same time.
Then Anderson started looking at the old dilapidated shed in her backyard in a new light. She and her fiance, a construction worker, realized it couldn't be saved, so he tore it down and started building something new.
I'm just so moved by the amount of time he's put into this.
The mental health impact, she says, is priceless.
To be able to have a space that I can just close the door at the end of the day and walk away and have that psychological separation from work to home, where I get to take off the lawyer hat and put the mom hat back on and the partner hat back on.
Interior designer Kate Zeidler says both home gyms and home offices have been a huge trend during the pandemic.
Everybody is finding that they have multifunctions for their spaces.
And people are looking at their homes differently now that they're spending so much time there.
Feathering their nests and making their homes more suitable to how they felt comfortable living.
The comfort of home so many are craving during these tough times. Nicole Ireland, CBC News, Toronto.
And that is our show for you tonight. Thank you so much for watching. Chris Glover will have your next local newscast tomorrow at 6, and there will be no late night show tomorrow night at 11. Have a great night, everyone.